thanks for joining us again for Biology 102. Today we're going to cover Chapter 20, which is going to be on vertebrates. First, we're going to start off, as always, with our scientist. We have Ray Lankester. He's a British zoologist who was born in 1847 and died in 1929. His family was well renowned in the scientific community because his mother's popular writings on the medical use of plants and his father's public health crusades and a close association with distinguished scientists within the family. He's going to receive his degree from Christ Church in Oxford in 1870, followed by his Master's of Arts degree in Exeter College of Oxford in 1872, where he's going to study under the scientist Thomas Huxley. He becomes a professor of zoology and comparative anatomy at the University College London in 1874 to 1890. He then becomes director of Britain's Natural History Museum. That's going to be in 1898 to 1908. He's also going to enjoy a position as a joint editor of Quarterly Journal of Microscopical Science at 1869 all the way up to 1920 and provides weekly newspaper columns that profile scientific topics. Amassed nearly 200 publications, he's going to include several extensive works that were devoted to the application of evolutionary principles to comparative anatomy, embryology, and the classification of animals. He's also going to contribute to science, resulting in the election of the Royal Society in 1875, a receipt of the Royal Medal in 1885, and the Darwin-Wallace Medal in 1908, the Copley Medal in 1913, and the Linnaean Medal in 1920. Now let's dive deep into our actual sections of notes where we're going to discuss these vertebrates. First, we're going to start off with Urochordata. The Urochordata are going to be comprised of approximately about 3,000 species of tunicates, invertebrate chordates, that are going to be characterized by a sac-like body that's protected by a thick protective sheath, or a tunic that's going to be comprised of proteins and cellulose. They are sessile. Remember, sessile means that they don't move around and they stay in one place. So these sessile animals are going to live in freshwater and marine water environments. Remember, your marine water is salt water. They're going to circulate water through their bodies using an in-current siphon that's going to bring water into contact with their pharyngeal slits, and then from there, they're going to be able to capture microscopic food particles and oxygen. It's going to be removed from the water so that they can use it within their body. They're also going to have what's called an excurrent siphon. That's going to take that same water that was brought in through the in-current, and it's going to expel it out of the body cavity. The excurrent siphon also is going to serve as a reproductive role. It's going to release gametes into the water to initiate external fertilization, which is going to result in free-swimming, bilaterally symmetrical, tadpole-like larva that's going to possess all 5 chordate features prior to undergoing metamorphosis. Only the pharyngeal slits and the endostyle are going to remain in adult tunicates after metamorphosis. So you see below, this is what they're going to look like after fertilization and when they first start to form. So you can compare the frog above to the tunicate below. They all have the incurrent siphon. They're going to have the excurrent siphon. They have dorsal hollow nerve cords. They're going to have a postnatal tail. They have a notochord. They're going to have a stomach, and you see those pharyngeal slits. That's going to help capture food and take oxygen out of the water so they can use it within their body. The cephalochordata, cepphal, remember, means head. Chordata means it has a notochord or spinal cord. This is going to represent more than 30 species of invertebrate chordates known as lancelets, which are going to be marine animals that are believed to resemble a primitive ancestor of all vertebrates. They're found more than half buried in a substrate that's drawing water into their mouths to direct over a pharyngeal slit. So remember, it's bringing this water in just like the last ones. It's going over those slits. This case, though, they're going to have mucus that's secreted by the endostyle that's going to help trap microscopic food particles before the water is going to exit the body through what's called a atropore. That's going to be a ventral opening. Remember, ventral means belly, so it's going to come out through the section or region we would consider to be the belly. Dorsal is going to be its back. Now with these, they're going to be able to extract nutrients and then transport them by blood through a series of blood vessels, which is going to make them have a closed circulatory system. This is highlighted by a lack of heart, red blood cells, or even hemoglobin. Respiration is going to occur by way of direct diffusion. Dorsal hollow nerve cords are going to run parallel to the notochord, and it's going to be characterized by cerebral vesicles, a small anterior swelling that possesses regional features and is going to be responsible for receiving incoming sensory input from the sense organs. It's commonly going to emerge from the substrate when reproducing, a practice that's going to involve external fertilization and metamorphic development of a ciliated larva into a swimming adult lancelet that retains all 5 chordate features. And so you can look over to the right-hand side and you can see these different features. Vertebrata is going to be animals with a distinct backbone. So these are our vertebrates. These are going to include fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. There's about 36,000 species and highly diversified freshwater and marine species. They're going to be characterized by gills that are going to be able to extract oxygen from water, a 2-chambered heart, sensitive sense organs, and an endoskeleton and ectothermic and endothermic thermoregulation strategies. So in with our fishes, those are all the things that you are going to be able to see. There's going to be 3 main groups that are going to be differentiated by the absence or presence of fins, scales, and jaws, and the composition of the endoskeleton. First, we have our agnathans. These are going to be scaleless, jawless fishes. First, you see the hagfish. That's going to include around 80 species. These are marine scavengers that are going to use their mouths to grasp and tear into the flesh of prey, subsequently tying themselves into a figure-8 knot that you can kind of see over here to the right-hand side to maintain leverage on their prey. They'll produce large amounts of slime to help protect them from predators. Little's known regarding their reproductive behavior. They are dioecious individuals. They have fertilization of eggs, which is going to be external, and development of offspring appears to lack a larval stage. Looking over here, you see another agnathian that's going to be a lamprey. It's going to include around 40 species, and they're found in both freshwater and marine water environments. They'll consist of parasitic and non-parasitic adults. The parasitic ones are going to form attachments to swimming fish using specialized suckers with teeth after metamorphosizing into adults. Non-parasitic lamprey will die after reproducing. Sea lampreys are going to be common pests of the Great Lakes and devastate fish populations in freshwater habitats. The control measures are currently underway to help reduce the sea lamprey numbers and to improve the population of native fishes. And so you can see over to the right-hand side how it can attach. You see those suckers, and you see how it has those attachment pieces that are able to go into its prey and hold on. Our second group is going to be the chondrichthyes. These include approximately around 1,200 species of sharks and rays. Fishes are going to have paired fins, dermal dentricles, which are going to be scales, powerful jaws, and an endoskeleton that's going to be comprised of cartilage. Chondra means cartilage, so that's where it goes in with its name. In addition to highly vascularized gills and a well-developed nervous system and sense organs. Reproduction is mostly going to be highlighted in dioecious individuals. They have internal fertilization, oviparity, ovoparity, and viviparity. Oviparity is going to be a mode of reproduction where the animal is going to develop and hatch outside of the body from an egg that's going to be laid from the mother. The embryo is going to receive nourishment from the yolk inside of the egg with little to no development inside of the mother after the egg is laid. This method is going to be common amongst these type of fish, but you can also find it with some insects and birds and different reptiles. Ovoviviparity is going to be a reproductive strategy where embryos are going to develop inside eggs that are going to be retained within the mother's body until they hatch. The developing young are going to be nourished by the yolk sac of the egg and not directly by the mother, although the mother's body is going to provide protection and gas exchange for the embryo. This method is a hybrid between egg-laying oviparity and live-bearing viviparity, where we can see examples in things like sharks and reptiles and even other invertebrates. And our last, viviparity, is going to be a reproductive strategy where an animal is going to be able to give live birth to young after the embryo develops inside of the mother's body. This process is going to be common in most mammals, many reptiles, and some fish, where the mother provides nourishment and protected environment for the developing offspring. The most developed form is going to be seen in placental animals, which is going to use the placenta to connect the embryo to the mother's circulation. Sharks are mostly going to be recognized as oceanic predators with streamlined bodies and sharp teeth, but their diversity also includes large filter-feeding species. You've got the whale shark, the basking shark, and the megamouth shark. With these fishes, the rays are going to have dorsoventrally flattened bodies with wing-like fins and are found hunting along the substrate or the pelagic zone of the ocean. Some rays are going to have evolved protective innovations such as venomous spines, electric organs, and elongated rostrum studded with teeth. The third group is going to be the osteichthyes. These include around 28,000 species. They're going to represent a familiar group of fish species that are going to be paired with fins, scales, jaws, and a bony endoskeleton. Anatomy is further distinguished by a protective slime layer, gills protected by an operculum, a swim bladder, a sac-like organ that's going to be filled with gas to help regulate the buoyancy. So that's going to be important. So you can see the swim bladder below. Reproduction involves mostly dioecious individuals with external fertilization, common practice, followed by oviparity, oviviparity, and viviparity. And so if you need to refresh on those, just go back to the last slide where I talked about that. These are going to be divided into two main groups. We have what's called the ray-finned fishes. They're going to possess fins with long, hardened rays of bones. These include things like bass, salmon, and cod. The second group is going to be lobed-finned fishes. They're characterized by large, fleshy, lobed fins with rod-shaped, leg-like bones. It includes 6 species of lungfishes, which use lungs to breathe air when the aquatic habitats become stagnant or if they dry up, and 2 species of coelacanths. These are going to be a distinctive deep-water marine fish with a muscular leg-like appendage. Ecological impacts of these fish are going to be regulating and stabilizing aquatic food webs. They recycle and redistribute nutrients, and they help with monitoring ecosystem health as bioindicators. So if we start to see these fish disappear or start to die, we notice that something's off within that area. Medical impact is that they provide the human diet with a low-fat, high-quality protein which contains numerous minerals, vitamins, and essential fatty acids. They're going to have high levels of toxins, though, that are found in some fish, and some fish should be avoided in diets of pregnant or nursing mothers and of young children. Specifically, things like tuna are known to contain mercury, so you have to watch your mercury levels or not eat these types of fish too often. Pharmaceutical industry has found that the potential benefit of neurotoxins of pufferfish and antimicrobial peptides of the hagfish, catfish, and dogfish sharks are going to be able to be used in developing and producing new medicines. So below, the left-hand side's a salmon, and the right-hand side's going to be a picture of a dogfish shark. Based on their dependency as a source of livelihood and food for many people around the world, they're going to be very important to the economic productivity of an area. They also meet the high demand for human consumption. We have aquaculture, which has become a leader in breeding, cultivating, and harvesting fish, a practice that also is benefited the fish in things like fish oil, the production of different household products, cosmetics, and agricultural products. So we are currently in an area in Virginia that is known to have one of the largest fisheries on our side of the world, so in our nation. And I think even as far as Canada. So our little town has a very large fishery and produces a large amount of fish such as tilapia. The amount of money that's going to be generated from sport fishing and owning an aquarium is also going to help to increase the economic value of fish. Next, we're heading into the amphibians. This is going to include approximately 8,500 species of Sicilian, salamander, frog, and toads. They're going to represent a distinct group of tetrapod vertebrates that live on land, but remain reliant on fresh water for purposes of things such as respiration, preventing desiccation, remember that means drying out, and for reproduction. It's going to be characterized by ectothermy, an endoskeleton that's going to be composed of bone, and three-chambered heart, moist to rough skin, and gas exchange through gills as larvae and lungs as terrestrial adults. The Sicilians are going to be made up of over 200 species. They're legless, snake-like amphibians that live in freshwater ponds and substrates of tropical forests feeding on worms and invertebrates. Their reproduction involves a dioecious individual and the use of pheromones to attract a mate and to copulate with their copulation organs that induce internal fertilization. For oviparous Sicilians, the aquatic species are going to lay their eggs in water and hatch larvae with fin-like tails and external gills that are going to develop into adults through metamorphosis, while terrestrial Sicilians are going to lay their eggs in moist burrows, and the larvae are going to hatch and undergo direct development. Most Sicilians are going to be vivipacious and deliver live young. Salamanders are going to consist of nearly 800 species that are going to inhabit both terrestrial and aquatic habitats. They represent the first group of tetrapod vertebrates and are distinguished by uniquely right-angled limbs and produce an S-shaped movement as they walk. And so you can kind of see that if you look over on the right-hand side at that picture, you kind of see the S-shape to the body as the salamander's walking. They possess the ability to regenerate limbs in addition to organs in both the larval and adult stages of their life. They're going to use pheromones and courtship rituals to attract a mate, which results in internal fertilization, which is going to be highlighted by a transfer of a spermatophore deposited into the substrate by the male, who assists the female in recovering it. Aquatic salamanders are going to lay their eggs in water, where they're going to hatch larvae with fin-like tails and external gills that are going to undergo metamorphosis. Terrestrial salamanders are going to lay eggs under logs or rocks and hatch into a miniature version of the adult. Some species of salamanders are going to be viviparous, though. Anurans. These are going to include 7,500 species of frogs and toads that are distributed through terrestrial and aquatic habitats. Their bodies are going to lack tails and have limbs that are going to be reoriented under their bodies for jumping and for landing. Mate attraction is going to be through species-specific vocalizations and a brief courtship, which is going to be followed by amplexus. That's a male clasps onto the female and the external fertilization of eggs. Eggs are going to hatch into a herbivorous tadpole with a fin-like tail and external gills, but can lack limbs. These tadpoles are going to remain in water, where they're going to undergo a metamorphosis until they lose their tails and develop terrestrial features such as limbs, lungs, and a carnivorous diet. Now, lots of people will find these tadpole eggs and they will hatch them and grow them. It's kind of a fun thing to do as you're growing up or if you have children. Alternate reproductive strategies are going to be observed in the anurans, including parental care of the young, direct development, and internal fertilization, and sometimes oviparity. Ecological impacts are going to provide stability and resilience to terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems through nutrient recycling, food webs, and as biological control agents. They enhance soil productivity, and they also are used as bioindicators to let you know how healthy an area is. Recent decline of amphibians has been attributed to the accumulation of pollutants affecting their development. So that's another way we can use them as bioindicators. With economic impact, we have ecological value of amphibians as biological control agents that may have an economic impact in helping us regulate the population of disease-carrying vectors, especially those in mosquitoes, agricultural pests, and invasive species of insects and arthropods. Their medical impact is that we use them for biomedical research, and that leads to potentially new antibiotics based on numerous antimicrobial peptides that are going to be found in their skin secretions, along with other potential medicines that are believed to have helped suppress pain and influence blood pressure and treat diabetes. Medical researchers are able to investigate the regenerative ability of salamanders to help improve the lives of humans. And so here looking down, we see 3 different types of frogs/toads. The skin secretions are going to be used in that poison dart frog. That's going to be what's seen on the left. We have oriental fire-bellied toad, which is going to be seen in the middle. And then we have a northern leopard frog. These are the ones that we usually dissect in class. These have been discovered to possess pharmaceutical benefits. Reptiles are going to include about 11,500 species, represented by lizards, snakes, turtles, and crocodilians. These are going to be characterized by ectotherms fully adapted to terrestrial life through evolutionary innovations that are going to prompt success, including the thick, scaly skin and amniotic eggs. Further distinguished by clawed toes and 2 pairs of limbs, excluding snakes and some lizards. They're going to have calcified endoskeletons, powerful muscles, large, highly developed, efficient lungs, and a 3-chambered heart. Examples, lizards, snakes, and turtles, or sometimes they have a 4-chambered heart, like the crocodilians or crocodiles. They also have an expanded brain and specialized sense organs. There's going to be 4 main groups of reptiles. We have the lizards, which are going to include over 7,000 species of geckos, iguanas, skinks, chameleons, and glass lizards. Diverse reptiles that exhibit variable sizes, different lifestyles like terrestrial, some of them burrow, some of them are arboreal, which means they live in trees, and some of them glide. They're heterotrophic as far as their diet, so that means they eat other things, and caudal anatomy. That's anti-predation behavior that involves self-amputation of a tail followed by a regeneration if necessary. Reproduction is mostly going to be sexual, involving internal fertilization with copulation organs followed by oviparity or viviparity, or they have the use of both in some species. Parthenogenesis is going to be another form of reproduction that's exhibited by lizards, some lizard species. Snakes is going to be our second group that includes nearly 4,000 species. They're a recognizable group of reptiles for their long, legless bodies. They're further defined as predatory carnivores that use specialized sensory organs, or chemoreceptors. These are often referred to as Jacobson's organs that are going to be found in the snake, and they have a thermoreceptor, which is going to be called the pit organ. They're going to use both of these to locate prey, which is often going to be swallowed whole, while other species are going to use constriction or venom to immobilize their prey before swallowing. Most species reproduce sexually, but pathogenesis does not occur in some species. So we have both oviparity, ovoviparity, and viviparity, which are going to be exhibited in snake species with parental care demonstrated in some. The third group is going to be turtles. This includes nearly 400 species. They belong to one of 4 groups. We can have the box turtles, or what we refer to as tortoises. These are terrestrial. These are the ones that we see around our area. You've got turtles, which are going to be found in fresh water. You've got terrapins, which are going to be found in brackish water. That's water that is going to have some salt in it, but is mixed with fresh water. And we have sea turtles, which are going to be marine waters or salt water. Common features are going to include a 2-piece dome-shaped protective shell. You have a carapace and a plastron. The limbs are going to be modified for specific use in their environment. They're going to lack teeth, but they're going to have a horny beak and multiple heterotrophic feeding behaviors. Sexual reproduction in turtles is going to involve internal fertilization and oviparity, which is going to be accompanied with a nest building and temperature-dependent sex determination of offspring. Females are going to be produced at higher temperatures, and the lower temperatures are going to produce males. So those that possibly will be closer towards the top of the nest, where some may shine down on that land, will all come out female, and the ones that are going to be found deeper in the hole usually will be male because they're further away from the heat. The fourth group are our crocodilians, or crocodiles. They consist of nearly 30 species of not just crocodiles, but alligators, caimans, and gavials. The crocodilians are known for their four-chambered hearts, powerful limbs, elongated snouts, robust bodies, and strong jaws that are lined with numerous teeth. Crocodilians are going to be swift, stealthy, carnivorous predators that are going to implement death roll to subdue their prey upon capture. And if you've watched any of the shows where you see people go out and hunt and capture these, you can see that they are always worried about that death roll. They reproduce sexually and oviparous, laying their eggs in nests guarded by the female, a feature that continues after the eggs hatch as well. Sex of offspring are going to be dependent upon temperature of the nest, with the females producing in extreme temperature ranges and males at intermediate temperature ranges. The ecological impact of reptiles is that they influence plant reproduction, nutrient recycling, and food webs in their ecosystems, and they're going to serve as ecosystem engineers. With medical impact, although they're potentially lethal to humans, a link between traditional and modern medicinal practices exists with snake venom, which has been implemented into the development of new medicines for the treatment of different ailments, including cardiovascular disease. Economic impact, it relates to the importance of their meat and eggs as a source of dietary protein, consumption of alligators for food, and the use of their production in fashionable commodities has encouraged harvesting of reptiles through hunting and farming, two practices that have benefited many states in the southern United States, such as Louisiana. Unfortunately, harvesting reptiles has become a significant conservation issue because of the number of threatened and endangered species that it affects, leading wildlife management and sustainability programs to implement strategic plans to help protect reptilian biodiversity. Now, in these areas that often hunt them, they do have to go in, they have to be licensed, and they usually have to purchase a certain number of tags, and they have to tag each one of these reptiles as they capture them. That helps with over hunting and helps to keep their numbers in check so we don't overhunt. Next, we have our birds. This is going to consist of about 11,000 species. They're recognized for the uniformity of structural and functional features such as feathers, a lightweight skeleton, a toothless skull, a horny beak, and a powerful muscle that attach to keeled sternums that are found in birds that fly. Most familiar characteristics of birds is their ability to fly, although there are some species that are incapable of performing this behavior. Evolution of flight and endothermy in birds requires maintaining a high metabolic rate, which is going to be compensated by several heterotrophic feeding behaviors. They have a four-chambered heart, a specialized respiratory system, and a well-developed nervous system. They are oviparous, and they lay their hard-shelled amniotic eggs in prepared nests. Depending on the species, young will hatch undeveloped and helpless, requiring extensive parental care, and they are going to be covered in soft, fluffy feathers and independent of their parents. Diversity is highlighted by different sizes, colors, and foot and beak types. Egrets are going to be wading birds with long, thin, stilt-like legs and spear-like bills. Ducks are going to have short legs with webbed toes and broad, flat beaks. Eagles are going to have hooked, sharp talons and a beak modified for tearing. Cardinals have a long, slender toe with perching and sea-cracking beaks. Hummingbirds are going to have small legs with perching toes and straw-like beaks. Woodpeckers have grasping feet and chisel-like beaks. And ostriches are going to have muscular toes with a broad, flat beak. Ecological impact is that they're going to help with plant reproduction, nutrient recycling, food webs, and serve as ecosystem engineers because they do build a lot of things. Medical impact is that they're going to be reservoirs for pathogens such as bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites that can transfer to humans primarily through indirect transmission and or the act of transport vessels for vectors, like ticks that carry Lyme disease. Economic impact is consumption of meat and eggs from birds as a primary source of protein that provides a valuable economic benefit. I know personally, I do eat a lot of chicken and I do eat a lot of eggs. They're also going to serve us as a biological control agent against agricultural pests. They do go around, especially chickens and things, and they will eat insects and especially things like ticks. They provide inspiration to humans through bird watching. I do this as well. Birds are also going to be considered agricultural pests. They're known to cause millions of dollars of damage to many important grain and fruit crops. Although birds are going to be significant pollinators of shrubs, trees, and wildflowers, there's going to be some common species considered agricultural pests in North America, including the red-winged blackbird, the brown-headed cowbird, and the common gackle, that are going to cost farmers millions of dollars in lost crops per year. Next, we move on to the mammals. These are going to be comprised of about 6,500 highly diverse species. They're distinguished by the presence of hair, which helps to insulate and prevent the loss of body heat, and serve in several different types of glands. Mammary glands are going to be found in females and are responsible for producing milk to nurture developing offspring. Sebaceous glands are going to be oil glands. They're going to produce oily substances composed of fats known as sebum that's going to help to lubricate hair and provide moisture to the skin. Sweat glands are going to be located in the skin, and they're going to secrete an evaporative solution of water and solutes that's going to help control body temperature. So you release that in order to help cool your body. Mammals are also going to be endothermic and possess an enlarged skull, flexible vertebral column, specialized teeth like canines to rip and tear, incisors to snip and bite, molars and premolars to crush and grind and mash. They're going to have distinct heterotrophic feeding behaviors and a well-developed nervous system with a complex brain. Mammals are going to practice sexual reproduction and internal fertilization, but they exhibit 3 types of offspring development that can define the different type of mammalian groups. The first are going to be called your monotremes. These are oviparous mammals that lay eggs with a leathery shell. So examples of these would be duck-billed platypus and a spiny anteater. Next, we have our marsupials. These are viviparous mammals that give birth to underdeveloped embryos that crawl into a pouch where they're going to be able to develop further as the mother takes care of them. So examples of these would be kangaroos, koalas, and the Virginia opossum. Third is going to be the placentals. These are mammals that have a placenta, which is going to be an organ that attaches to the fetus and from the fetus to the uterus, for the purpose of exchanging things like nutrients, gases, and waste with the mother. Examples of these are going to be your dolphins, squirrels, and us, humans. Ecological benefits is they impact in terrestrial and aquatic food webs as prey and apex predators, a group of larger terrestrial carnivores who can greatly influence the structure and proper functioning of the ecosystem. Ecological roles also will include maintaining things like composition of terrestrial and aquatic communities, nutrient recycling and transfer, plant reproduction, and ecosystem engineers. So the mammals serving different yet significant ecological roles in Yellowstone that you see below are going to include things like your gray wolf, your American bison, and the American beaver. Medical impacts. Traditional medicine practices have used mammalian species for thousands of years to treat different ailments of the body. In modern medicine, mammals closely related to humans are often going to be used to test and determine the effectiveness of new medicines and vaccines. Other mammalian species, such as rodents, are going to be common in human health because they are reservoirs for pathogens and transport vessels for vectors. Many of these species are going to be used to investigate the same disease as well. Economic impact. They provide dietary protein and valuable economic product acquired through hunting and/or domesticated mammals. The allure of mammals is going to lead to the domestication of species that become household pets and help generate the ecotourism industry that improves the economic value of local communities. So this would be done in things such as zoos. Mammals can create significant economic losses to agricultural industry by causing damage to crops or by targeting livestock. So that's going to finish us up on our vertebrates. I'll see you back for our next unit.